Right. So I've spent a lot of time debating with myself how I was going to do this video. Uh, because I want to be at least somewhat positive in a not massively positive situation. Because with the two Nations League results now having come and gone, there's no point really looking back on them. It's better to look forward than to dwell on past failings. So, whilst these results should stay in our minds and hopefully encourage us to do better in the coming games, uh, it's not too much point just beating the dead horse and talking more about the games. Plus, it's not very fun to talk about the games, so let's move on from that. Get it out of the way. The U.S. lost to both Panama and Canada in the space of 4 days. Not very good performances either time. Performances that I don't think were so bad that they can't be fixed. Um, but certainly below the expectation of the USA men's team. Um, I do think I've never been a massive fan of a lot of the discourse around the USMNT because there's kind of this attitude of like anytime we do anything other than win, it's an embarrassment. It's kind of hard in CONCACAF because as one of the elite nations in CONCACAF, not in the world football, but within North America, certainly, the expectation is always victory. So the Mexico has the same problem. You know, winning the Gold Cup, our continental competition, is kind of just treated as um, it's treated as a relief, really. It's not some massive achievement that's going to be remembered for generations. It's a relief we didn't lose, but if we do lose, it is a humiliating loss. You know, it's embarrassing. Everyone on the field should be ashamed, and that kind of makes it hard to celebrate any victory in Concacaf if your victories are only treated as reliefs and your losses humiliation. Uh, and I think that was fairly evident under Bearhalter, who was by no means a brilliant genius of a coach, but I think that he wasn't quite as bad as a lot of the fan base talked about him. Um, like winning the 2021 Gold Cup without a lot of our main players, uh, I think was an achievement that deserved to be praised. You know, it's not just an expectation that we should win that. Um, and it's interesting how the narrative kind of got rewritten to no, that Gold Cup victory was something that he was supposed to win. That's something that we should be expecting to win. So there's no point praising that. Look at all the poor qualifying results. Um, and I think the uncomfortable truth I've kind of been thinking recently is that I don't know if the US are quite head and shoulders above everyone else in CONCACAF like we've kind of been saying they are for the past 2-3 years. um, I mean, they definitely are the most talented team on paper in the CONCACAF region, but a lot of our stars aren't actually like they're in Europe, but they're not always starting. Uh, we've had this issue with goalkeepers a lot, where we've had quite a few go into European leagues, and yet um, all of them, like for the most part, they don't start. Matt Turner got a big move to Arsenal, and then that didn't really pan out, and so he went to Crystal Palace, where he also hasn't really been starting games. Zach Steffen went to Man City. Again, a huge transfer, and then he didn't go anywhere, and he ended up going back to MLS, which felt like a pretty big step back in his career. Though he is seeming to recapture some of the form that got him that move to Man City in the first place back in MLS. And I hope he regains some confidence because he is actually a pretty good goalkeeper. Giovanni Reyna, who's one of our big playmakers, hasn't really managed to nail down a starting spot ever in uh, the Dortmund team. So I think like we've definitely got some very talented players and some who are actually starting and competing at a very high level. The likes of Anthony Robinson, Pulisic, Weah, McKennie, and even to a slightly lesser extent, Sargent and Wright and Balogun, all are doing well in championship and in the French league. Um, but like I don't know if the depth is quite so strong that we are head and shoulders above of the rest of CONCACAF. And so maybe results like this shouldn't be quite as surprising to the fan base and to pundits covering the US as it has been. Um, like Canada is kind of like the US to a lesser degree. I think the US is a stronger team than Canada and probably should still be expected to win, but like Canada might have the two best players in CONCACAF in Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies. And the rest of the team, while it's not quite at the level of David and Davies, is also like fairly good. And so maybe it's not again, maybe it's not quite so surprising that the U.S. has lost in the way we have. I just wonder if the expectations need to change just a little bit, and if we're expecting something a bit too high, uh, or maybe we should be upset because again we are still the best team in Concacaf in terms of pure talent, and we have won the last three Nations Leagues. Uh, but I just think I've seen a lot of discussion of just like this is embarrassment. The players should be ashamed. They don't seem proud to represent their nation, and I guess it kind of depends on how a player is motivated because depending on the player, getting like absolutely ripped into by a legend like Clint Dempsey or Landon Donovan, who have both been fairly vocal in response to these two games, that could lead to motivate them, or it could cause a player to retreat into their shell further or be like get more in their head, and really worry about their place in the team. And their performances, and instead of making them better, it causes performances to drop even more. Um, I just think the reaction that has been so violent of, this is an absolute shame and embarrassment, uh, maybe isn't the most helpful. It might just make things worse and make what is admittedly two very poor results all the more, uh, just make it worse for the players. I don't know if it's entirely helpful for getting back on our feet. If the result every time if the expectation every time we lose is just that's embarrassing, we should be ashamed. Um, and I saw this before, like this was happening before we had this current generation. Anytime we gotten a poor result away in like Honduras or Costa Rica, Panama, the same questions would come up, or even losses to Mexico, and like we're good, we're the best team in Concacaf on paper, but we aren't so good that we should only be expected to ever win. Like not even Mexico's done that. They've lost to Honduras twice in San Pedro Sula, which is a pretty hard place to play. Um, and Canada's been like sometimes Canada's doing really well, and they seem to be doing quite well at the moment. But they've also had their fair share of disappointing results, despite having a really good generation. Um, Maybe I'm going too defensive. Like I'm defending these players too much because the result wasn't great, but I think that uh, the discourse isn't the most helpful for getting back on our feet because now we do have to look forward. We've got a Gold Cup coming up to try and make up for the performances today, or not today, in the past few days. um, we can't let Mexico have a continental crown. We haven't, you know, uh, we didn't go on a 5-year run where we played 7 games against Mexico and didn't lose once. just to see them try and regain their status as the biggest dog in CONCACAF. Um, and I do think some of the issues that showed up in both of these games are fixable. Uh, it does kind of feel like the players like kind of were just waiting for the result to come their way. Uh, and sometimes that does work. It's actually kind of interesting. In the Nations League a year ago, we very nearly were in the panicked crisis mode that we are right now, because Jamaica were seconds away from beating us. Like, it's maybe forgotten now, but like we got a last minute goal against Jamaica and then won in extra time, but they were very, very close to pulling out the result. And I can only imagine how panicked the the discourse around the team would have been then if we'd lost to Jamaica and maybe lost the third place game too. We really only tend to show up against Mexico, it seems. Uh, and don't get me wrong, that definitely does need improvements. And I guess I kind of am hoping the gut punches can cause a positive reaction in the team, because falling short of your goal and losing in this manner we have, like, it doesn't have to be treated as a bad thing in the sense that it doesn't have to get you down, I guess. It definitely is a bad thing. We should be upset about the performances. Like we should do better. Uh, but it and also cause the team to improve. Uh, and I hope it does. I don't know how many more gut punches we need to realize that the result isn't going to come our way uh, on some mediocre performances. Uh, but I think that we have Pochettino, who is like a mastermind of a manager, by far the best manager the U.S. has ever had. Um, and we got we do have a fairly solid team. Maybe not quite the behemoths that we've made him out to be, but still a pretty good team. Um, and so now we look ahead to the Gold Cup, and I do think we're gonna need some kind of rebound performance in the Gold Cup. And now there's probably a lot of pressure on the Gold Cup that wouldn't have been there if we didn't have these results. But I don't think this is so bad that we can't come back for it. I'm not quite hitting the panic button just yet. Um, because I think that there's, 15, 14 months doesn't seem like that much time, but it's more than you might think. And so there's time to get our act together and make little tweaks here or there that could be like change things massively. The one like brilliant shining moment in the Canada game was the goal we scored, because Weah had this beautiful pass into Luna. Luna might he's playing his way into a World Cup squad right now. Luna looks like he's gonna be in the World Cup squad if he keeps up performances like this. He did a good job at laying it off to Ajimang, who then scored the goal. And I was watching the game and just like kind of perked up right there, like, oh wait, we just did something really impressive. That was like the one thing we did really well in the game, that one little moment. Uh, but I'm glad to see that those moments can come. And if we can do more of that, it's not time to press the panic button just yet. I'll end this very long video where I maybe haven't said the most substantive stuff and maybe have contradicted myself a few times, because I've kind of said we shouldn't expect to win quite in the way we have, but then still it's disappointing. But I'll end it with this. I was reading through some of the Guardian responses to the results, and I think, regardless of what you think of the political standpoint of the Guardian, they do really good sports coverage. And one of the points they made is that there is actually a decent history of hosts kind of limping their way into the World Cup, but getting their act together at the final hour and putting in some good performances. Mexico in 1978 came into the World Cup very poor form and ended up making the quarterfinals. To name one example, like it's not the end of the world, and hosts do have a history of overperforming at the World Cup, so perhaps there's still hope for this team. I'm not giving up on them yet, despite some disappointing results in the Nations Leagues, because whilst things definitely need to improve, it's not so bad that they can't. Uh, and so I'll continue to watch the team and hope that things get better in the Gold Cup.